Hello, everybody. Welcome to On the Homefront once again. John Murphy, very happy to share some time with you. We're live on Wednesdays at 5 o'clock here on WILI AM and FM. We're also on YouTube. The radio station has a YouTube channel, and many of our shows have playlists for full-time coverage. Our show today is going to end a little early to give Red Sox coverage because anything I can do to help the Red Sox win a game is good for me. But anyway, what we're going to do today is take a look at the legislative session that just wrapped up about the arts organizations. We'll have a conversation with Rufus from the Connecticut Arts Alliance. And we're going to open to this afternoon with a story about Mansfield. And it's another example of a story that I've covered many times over the last 25 years. And it has to do with the relationship between the University of Connecticut and the town of Mansfield and the people who live in town over various aspects of development and growth. You may have heard the story recently, but people on the East Road area off of 195 are concerned about a possible location of a golf facility that the university is planning. And they're going through a review process, and they've had some local meetings, and we're going to give them some airtime to share their story with people that are still finding out about it. And we're going to give them time in the months ahead to track the story so that as the process moves forward, they have a chance to stay in touch with you and share information, and also let you know how to reach them in between on Facebook and with other media. So sitting next to me is Quin Harper. He lives on East Road, and I thank you very much for being here, Quin.
Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. And also we have Laura Tordenti. She's also a concerned citizen from town. Thank you for being here today, Laura, as well.
Thank you. Appreciate the invitation.
So just to give you some background, they had a large meeting in Mansfield at the library that was totally packed a couple of weeks ago. And they're going to have an update next Wednesday, May 20th at 6 o'clock in the library. So whatever we share today, you'll have a chance for an update locally next Wednesday at 6. And we'll stay with the story in the months ahead over the summer. But maybe one thing you could do to help us use our time well today is to kind of share quickly the roots of how you found out about a proposal and what your concerns are. And then we'll talk about how you've been using the process and how you've been treated so far. Fair enough?
Yep, sounds good.
Okay.
All right, so we live on East Road, which is near the Spring Hill Cafe, Sticks and Stones Cafe area across from the fire department in Mansfield, in Stores actually. And that is currently the proposed site of a large golf facility that UConn plans to build. And the area where they're going to build is the current site of what is called the Waxman Conifer Collection. And this is an historic arboretum that was maintained by the late horticulturalist Dr. Sidney Waxman starting in the 1950s. Most of the trees there are at least 80 years old, some much older. And he curated this space as a place to study particular species of dwarf conifers, among others. And it's been noted by plant scientists and horticulturalists as an important resource. It stores genetic diversity data about a lot of these plants. But the other issue that we have facing this project, in addition to the inevitable loss of this entire collection as a result of clearing it for a driving range and an actual building for the team to play on, is that East Road has been plagued by significant water issues for a very long time. And they're well documented, they're well known to us, they're even visible. If you take a drive down the road, you can see that both sides have been completely gouged out by excessive stormwater. And it's because of this that we have a lot of concerns about this project. And it turned out that after we voiced these concerns, after the scoping meeting, which was back in January.
January is when it began this year? Okay.
Yes, yeah. January is not when we learned about it. We first knew about this in
2021.
In 2021. But January was when they had a public scoping meeting when they presented their more concrete plans of what they intended to build. They showed us a footprint of where it was going to go roughly, but they didn't show us on an aerial map. They just showed us on nice green engineering plans. So we had to go off of that. We only had a month to submit comments about it, but now they seem to be going ahead with it, and we have a lot of concerns.
Yeah. So for folks that, folks understand that anything with real estate, it's complicated. There are many layers of legality. There's planning and zoning. There's many layers of approval. Do you have any idea how far along they are? Because I know the school year just ended up at UConn. They're going to be graduating very soon. Of course, work goes on all year. But do you know about the time frame? You had a chance to express your concerns. You had 30 days to share. So what did they say was next for you to get a response so you know how to do it properly?
So essentially, after the scoping meeting, they said that one of three things is going to happen. Either the project is simply not going to go forward.
Okay.
the project will go forward without an environmental impact evaluation, or the project will go forward with an environmental impact evaluation. And they still have not announced the post-scoping notice, but they did confirm at the Mansfield Town Gown meeting was it two days ago?
Yes,
I saw a post about that on Facebook.
That the only options now, they've eliminated the option of not going forward, of going forward without an environmental impact evaluation. That's not possible.
Okay.
So they're either going to abandon the project or they're going to go forward with an environmental impact evaluation. And they're not at the design stage yet, which is like when you get into the serious engineering details and you start doing. They're at the preliminary stage, which is basically they've put the footprint where it's going to go, what they're going to clear, but not, anything. We didn't really get any more details than that, so we don't know for sure how much they've done.
Transparency has been a real issue for many of us. As I said, we first became aware of this, some neighbors and I, in 2021. And there was...
Did you get like a public notice as a resident of a possible impact, things like that?
Well, no. Actually, a neighbor found out through the grapevine that the university was planning to build this golf training facility, and then another neighbor reached out to the town manager of Mansfield and asked about it, and there was a lot of concern and so forth, and he encouraged the neighbor to contact the university, their planning facilities liaison, and that is what she did. And then it was sort of seemingly dead in the water, okay? And then in 2023, once again, we learned that this was brought forth, and it was Quin's mother and I went to visit an associate vice president and expressed our concerns about that particular site for a variety of reasons that Quin has elucidated, and some additional ones, not only in terms of the water damage, but the displacement of wildlife and the historic nature of that site, the fact that it is in the historic district, one of 4 historic districts.
Right.
And the woman, she is now retired, seemed to be quite sympathetic to our concerns, and assured us that it was just a concept and no dollars were attached.
Yeah.
And fast forward to December 15th of 2025, when that evening I received an email from a fellow who works in facilities and planning telling me that the university had indeed decided to go forward with this project, and in fact the notice of the public scoping meeting would be dropped essentially the following morning on December the 16th. And so that meeting was scheduled for January the 7th. So the public only had really a couple of weeks. I'm surprised as many people turned out. This was a virtual meeting.
I see.
Because this was, the timing to me was suspect.
That was a January?
During the holidays.
Yeah, during the holidays when the university is on recess and people are, they're preoccupied with travel or holidays or what have you. And
maybe students were away as well, possibly.
Absolutely.
Holidays, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so right from the beginning, to me, they haven't been forthcoming at all. And I think, quite frankly, it was deliberate.
Do you have a sense, for people watching us today, by the way, we're speaking with Quin Harper and Laura Tordenti today. Did you have a sense of being a little reassured when you thought that the town had decided that they were going to either drop the project or go forward, but with an environmental assessment, as if that opened the door for more work on the idea, and they didn't have the idea of going ahead anyway? Did that make you feel a bit more secure, or was it just a fact and it doesn't make a difference? I just wonder.
Well, yes and no.
Because it didn't take that option.
Yeah, yes and no.
Okay.
Well, I was certainly concerned at one point that they were not going to do any kind of environmental assessment and that they were just going to go ahead, because the town of Mansfield has no authority to actually influence the project or provide any kind of oversight, because the land is owned by the state, by UConn.
Yeah.
But there is a reason that even with an environmental impact evaluation, I had a lot of concerns. And the reason is that my family has already suffered quite a bit because of deforestation on East Road, at a scale that is significantly smaller than what UConn plans to do.
I see. Well, there's issues of the law, then there are things above the law that should come into play as well when you deal with the town and the history. And there is a very complicated history between UConn and the town over a lot of issues.
Well, there is, and this is also an issue of stewardship. Obviously, UConn is a state institution operating on state-owned land. That is their land. Which
Absolutely.
Means it answers, however, to
Sure.
almost no one at the local level. The town of Mansfield cannot zone it, they cannot permit it, and they cannot stop it. That is institutional hegemony
Yeah.
in action. When a university can announce the project the week before Christmas and give residents 3 weeks to comment and face zero meaningful local oversight, that is not a partnership with the community. That is a powerful institution doing exactly what it wants.
Well, if you think about relations between Yale and New Haven, institutional power can give you the right to do things. It doesn't mean it's always the right thing to do.
Correct.
But if you have the authority, you can use it, but then there's a payback later. Folks should know also at this meeting that was on April 20th, the room was literally packed, and people were very respectful of the team. They had no issue with golf. They understood that there were several locations under consideration. And one thing I wanted to ask you while we have time, without getting lost in the details, because we're just starting to share the story now, is what about other locations that were brought up? Were they shot down, or are they still under review, and it might not have to be on East Road?
Well, my hope is that they're going back to the locations. I believe 3 were under review, and 2, correct me if I'm wrong, Quinn, were rejected because they were in historical districts. There was
Really?
historic
Like that.
nature to them,
I
which
think
is
it,
ours.
Yeah, it more or less boiled down to East Road was the preferable option. And to be honest, I think I know why. It's that this particular parcel, you really can't do anything else with it. It's very long, it's very narrow, and it's in the middle of a residential
It's like a
neighborhood.
driving
and of course,
range.
it's literally the size. It's shaped like one. They
7
can't do
acres,
anything
right?
else.
7 acres?
Yeah,
7 acres.
So I think they just don't have anything else they can do with this. They have a donor who they want to please by giving this land to.
It is
build
private money.
It is. Yeah,
understand.
it's
It is
a
private
donor
funds.
funded.
Yep.
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 And I think it's more or less just convenient for them to do it here. I don't think that the other locations are invalid necessarily, but I can't speak to that because I wasn't privy to those, and we don't know.
Did you have a chance, just to be fair to the process, I understand that the town council and planning and zoning had some concerns of their own, and they wrote a letter
They did.
that I'm trying to get a copy of that expressed their own concerns,
Yeah.
and they were waiting for a reply. As of this past week, they had a budget meeting. They had a meeting up in Mansfield, and the mayor mentioned that they were waiting for an answer, but they had a concern.
They had a concern, and we appreciate that.
Was
They-
it
they-
something different than yours? Did they
No.
have a different angle on it?
No. I attended the town gown,
Yeah.
town university relations.
Okay.
Several of us attended planning and zoning. Unfortunately, these meetings, the first one you can speak at, the second one you cannot, but we talked afterwards with the members of that committee, or commission, if you will. Went to the historical commission. They were terrific. They understood our concerns, and they forwarded their comments, I believe, to planning and zoning.
Okay.
And they in turn
Good.
forwarded their comments to the town council, and a letter was written. And we appreciate that. I don't know, and I'm sad to say this, how meaningful that will be. Because, again, the refrain that I get all the time is the shrugging of the shoulders. UConn does what UConn wants, because there isn't an entity, evidently, that can stop it. Apparently not even the office of the governor. He certainly has the power to do that. Will he?
Yeah.
Probably not. OPM? Well, they can take a look at if indeed a EIE is conducted. They can say, well, gee, we don't necessarily like the way you did it. I've looked. I've gone down all these rabbit holes. This has been going on for 5 months.
Yeah.
I would rather be spending time with my grandson than as acting as a geriatric Karen, trying to save East Road and working with other neighbors to save it from this horrible project. It's the wrong site. That is it, plain and simple. It's the wrong site.
I wanted to mention that there were other residents of the area that were at the meeting that shared their concerns and how their land has been affected. But just a couple of things. We have a couple of minutes today to finish this installment, and we're going to stay in touch. I offered airtime to the university last week to come on next Wednesday, but they declined until a later time. They wanted to wait for the scoping process to finish, and they referred me to the materials that they've already submitted. So we'll have them back when they're ready at a later date, but I wanted you to know that we did reach out to them, and I'll continue to do so. so they have a chance to explain these things as well. Now, a couple of quick things. Many students were at this meeting, and most of them are out of here now for the summer, except for the locals. There were a couple of student groups that were very connected to that forest, and they spoke very eloquently at this meeting.
They were terrific. They took this cause on as their own.
The petition was started by students.
By students,
It was.
2,800.
From within the Yukon community.
Over
this petition
2,800
started.
signatures, and they want to
2,800.
stay in touch with us.
Okay.
We're going to have Zoom calls
That's wonderful.
because at their
Right.
their preferences to do that.
And we'll have you back periodically when it's appropriate to tell the story. And the YouTube link for this will be shared so people can share the story. So before we go, if people want to follow you now, I know there's a Facebook connection.
Yes.
How can they get information between now and the next time?
We have the Facebook page called Stop the Yukon Golf Facility on East Road, I
Yes.
believe is the full name of it, which is a
Okay.
great place to find a lot of current information. We try to post updates to things like media that we interact with and developments, and pretty much anything new that happens with the story will probably show up there first.
Is that actually what it's called?
Yeah, I think it's on East Road is the...
Okay. But if you put this in, it may pop up. Stop the Yukon Golf Facility.
yes,
But,
I'm sure you could find it on Facebook.
Yeah, just search
It's a
on
public
that.
group.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. And the next meeting for this group will be Wednesday, May 20th, 6 o'clock at the Mansfield Library in the Buchanan Auditorium. And we'll try to have them back in June over the summer to follow up as things move forward. And thank you for being here today, and we'll certainly stay in touch.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
You
Appreciate
betcha.
it.
Okay, a short break, and we're going to go on a lighter note now, looking at the arts community and how they survived the legislative session that just ended. Stay with us. Alrighty, we're back live here on the Homefront. Happy to have you with us, whether it's live on the good old AM or FM at WILI, or maybe you've got us on YouTube now. The WILI radio YouTube channel has most of our shows available full-time as playlists, so check them out whenever you can. We're happy to keep connected to you throughout the year on all these programs locally. The radio station has expanded their afternoon block from 3 to 6 Monday to Friday with a lot more local shows, looking more and more at community affairs. So if you want to join us on the program for a future program, or if you have news to share, just use an email and we'll set it all up. It's john@humanartsmedia.com, and you're welcome to be here in the studio. So right now I'm happy to surf the airwaves again with Rufus de Rham. He's the interim director of the Connecticut Arts Alliance, and he's an arts colleague I've had on the radio many times. So Rufus, it's good to have you back again today. Thank you for joining us.
It's always a pleasure to be on your radio show, John, and I hope the east side of the state is having better weather than the west side of the state.
Well, right now it is. We had a decent day. We had some rain earlier, but no hosers. We need the water, so it wasn't bad. But anyway, the reason why we're talking to Rufus today is that the legislative session just ended, and as we all know, many critical bills didn't make it through. But I'm hopeful that he has some good news to share about how the arts community emerged. So I'm going to pass it to you, Rufus, about some of the bills that we talked about last time. How did they end up?
Sure. Unfortunately, I don't have good news. SB2 and HB 5443 were the two discussed earlier this session. And unfortunately, neither of them, although they passed out of committee and they made it further than we've ever made it before for funding bills, they didn't make it to a floor vote. However, there were some increases in the budget adjustment to certain arts organizations, Connecticut Humanities, and we'll count that as a win as we see arts and culture funding being cut all over the country right now.
Yeah, I know. It's not just Connecticut, that's for sure. It's a storm. How did the line item organizations, there are groups that depend on funding that comes from others, and then there are larger groups that are more institutional and they have their own lines. Did they make out all right, or are they also dealing with this?
Some line items did get small increases and adjustments this session, but nothing major, and no one lost money, which is, again, a win, I believe, in this current climate. This doesn't mean this was a bad session. In fact, we had many legislators take us aside and say how impressed they were with the arts community's advocacy this session. We had hundreds of people testify or write in testimony, and we had scores of people come in person or on Zoom to testify in front of committees. And I think we definitely gained more supporters this session, and we're already gearing up for the next long session, which is next year, is the budget session. and we're hoping that we can really make some headway. And you and I were on the CAA board many years ago.
Yes, we go back a ways. I was happy to be on the Alliance for a while.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I'm so proud of is how far we've come. And the fact that we are being taken very seriously by our legislative leaders. The fact that this is a little bit of a policy wonk nerd moment, but we did have SB 2 as a bill, and that signifies that the Senate leadership took this very, very seriously. The fact that we were the second bill for the session.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I think next session we're already gearing up to continue the same fight and also expand some other policy stuff into things like artists and arts in healthcare. We're trying to get April declared Arts, Culture, and Creativity Month at the state level. And we're also looking at what Colorado is doing right now in their session, which is they're working on a new business sort of designation called the Artist Corporation. And we're talking with them and the people behind the Artist Corporation movement to try to bring that to Connecticut. That will probably take a couple sessions to get through. But we're going to start in the next session.
That's a fabulous idea because, Connecticut's one of a few states that allow benefit corporations. I think now there's 20 that allow a merger of social benefits to the corporate model in a very healthy way. And doing that for arts would open up a big door, wouldn't it? That'd be awesome.
And I think it's a way to celebrate Connecticut's history of ingenuity, entrepreneurship, and creativity.
Now, I want to mention their website because I talked to Rufus off and on during the year, and these folks did a great deal of work to get their members informed, and they provided lots of information to make it easier for people to offer testimony and letters to their local legislators. So the website is something that if you don't know, you should write it down because you can learn a lot. And one of the things that the Alliance really is working on is collaboration, where groups really begin to think no longer as isolated individual things, but they're really something larger. And collaboration, I want Rufus to talk about what that word means to the future for all your members who are trying to survive. And many of them already know they have to collaborate, and other ones are still figuring that out, aren't they?
Sure, and I think the idea is really to start thinking outside of our silos. And how can we share resources, share expertise, and sort of build the whole community up? And I think our collaboration at a state level with CT Humanities is a really great example of that as we start to broaden our understanding. It's not just artists or art organization. It's not just humanities or humanitarians or humanities organizations. It's cultural organizations. We're all in this together. And we're all building Connecticut to be a place that is vibrant and healthy and civically engaged. And I don't know if you saw this, but NEA just released a report that adults that have any sort of interaction with art or culture are 4 times more likely to be civically engaged. They're more likely to volunteer in their communities. They're more likely to vote. They're more likely to run for public office.
Wow. They don't like to bowl alone, right? They don't like to bowl alone. That's what it is, right?
No. and I'm excited about this next couple of years. I really do think there's a sea change happening. And it is tough because we're in a really pretty dire financial state. But I'm seeing more and more collaboration at a state level, at a regional level. I just walked, for example, through Manchester. And did a tour of their cultural district. And I was so amazed at the level of cooperation between these businesses and these artists and the municipal leaders and the economic development people who are really working together to make Manchester just a really beautiful downtown and vibrant and filled with art and public art. And I was sort of like, yes, this is the future of Connecticut. Vibrant communities filled with art, filled with cooperation. That's how we have to do it.
That's the kind of model that's happening in some communities around the country, but even here in Connecticut. And you're talking about the multiplier effect of the arts economy that's now recognized. For a while, the Alliance had to argue that point, that for every dollar in the arts, you get many dollars back in different forms. And now that's part of the business model, isn't it? That's built into it.
Yeah, now we're marrying that with the civic and community health impact that art has. That art that decreases stress, decreases political stratification, brings neighbors together to talk about things and learn how to empathize with each other and be civically engaged and volunteer in your community and think locally and how can we make our communities better places to live. And I think combine that with the economic power we have, where art and creativity in the state is a powerhouse, and we're going to keep fighting for it.
So one thing we could do for a couple of minutes while we have Rufus, by the way, in case you've joined us, we're speaking with Rufus de Rham from the Connecticut Arts Alliance. CTArtsAlliance.org is the website, I believe, if my memory serves me well. CTArtsAlliance.org. Could you take us briefly for a tour so people can connect to the different aspects of what you do? And after the session is over now, you'll be retooling for the summer and fall with new things, but kind of what's there for people to find their way?
Sure. So on our website, the biggest thing that you could do is sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter is how we communicate what bills are coming, what we're doing. It's free. You don't have to be a member. In fact, we're really just focusing on building our newsletter, and so you can join that. There's also an advocacy sort of resource page with all sorts of stats and facts and dashboards that we're working on updating right now. And the next big thing is in June, we are going to be hosting a virtual webinar in partnership with Center for Artistic Activism, Greater New Haven Art Council, and Greater Hartford Art Council. And this is going to be free and open to anybody that wants to learn more about how art and artists and art organizations can make an impact at a local level and get together and start making changes.
That sounds great again. So the website is ctartsalliance.org. Now, Rufus, we worked together for many years, of course, on the Alliance, and for quite a while you were managing one of the service organizations in the Northwest End. And we're on the quiet corner on the Northeast End, and I wondered if you could share thoughts about how people in an area of the state that might be less heavily populated, more spread out, less of an economic base than larger towns. How are people in smaller areas trying to make it through in a positive way? And this is long after COVID is over, but it's more like moving forward when you have a smaller audience or smaller resources. What did you figure out to help people in the Northwest that might apply here in the Northeast?
So I think it goes back to collaboration, like we said, and recognizing what resources we already have in our communities and not reinventing the wheel.
Right.
For rural areas, I think libraries are huge, crucial elements of culture in our town. I know in our town in Kent, our library brings a lot of people together. They do art shows, they do workshops, creative workshops, community workshops. So I think getting involved, trying to volunteer for those organizations doing that work in your town, and then making sure that your town's organizations are putting those events onto your service organization's calendar. So every town is served by a regional service organization.
That's right.
And they all have a calendar that feeds into other calendars. So it's one of those ideas where you put your event in once, and then any town that has, or as part of this system, your event will populate in all the town calendars.
That's fabulous. What an easy way to get the word out.
Yeah, and I also just think, really trying to celebrate what makes your town special and what makes you love to live in it, and try to, too often we sort of tell ourselves, especially in the two quiet corners, oh, there's not much to do. We sort of believe in the sort of woe is us story.
Yeah, that's true.
But there's so much to do, and there's so many businesses small businesses trying to make our communities better. We also have a state where we have one of the most access to hiking and walking trails in the whole country. I think I saw a fact that it was every single person in Connecticut is only 10 minutes away from a walking trail. So getting outside, meeting your neighbors.
Yeah.
I recently took up birding. Highly recommend.
That's awesome. I love birds, man. Oh, yeah, birds are awesome. That's fabulous.
You meet all sorts of people. You get to know your community. And I just think, like, trying to just be a force for positivity is a small step, but it's a step that all of us can do. And also tell your board of selectmen or your town council or however your town is organized that, like, art is important to you. Let them hear it. Write a letter. Show up at a meeting and say, hey, I really think art is important to this community. We need to support the library. We need to support the local schools. We need to, throw a block party in the summer with some music and bring neighbors together. Like, that alone is going to do, that's maybe a couple $100.
Yeah.
You get a bunch of people, hot dogs, hamburgers, whatever. But then you're meeting neighbors. You're meeting people. People bring guitars, and then it becomes a community event, and it brings people together. And that impact is huge.
Yep. It does work everywhere. When people do it, they see the result. It's always about doing it as often as you can. And that's a real positive way to close our conversation right now with Rufus de Rham. Some positive thoughts dealing with things, because things get big because they start small and they get there one day at a time. And that's what he's talking about. Groups. I know many people have finally figured out that working as an individual has limits. If you join a guild, join an arts group, that gives you leverage and fun to meet other people doing things. So even in a quiet area, you might find 6 or 7 groups that are neighbors that you don't even know you have. And what you share is the arts. And that's kind of what Rufus is connecting with his work at the Alliance.
Yeah, and it could be something as simple as a quilting group or a community garden or a sewing circle.
Yeah.
I know people in town here that meet up at the local bar and just sit and craft.
Absolutely.
It's something as simple as that.
Yeah.
And you'll be surprised at the momentum that slowly builds in your town. And also, like, your outlook's gonna become better. Your health is gonna be better. It's a win-win.
There you go. Hey, careful, Rufus. You're practicing without a license now. Be careful, buddy. There you go. Well, art is definitely a kind of a prescriptive thing that they're finding out. They can prescribe art as a different form of healing, and you're talking about that, and we'll get back to that as things move ahead during the year.
Yeah, I can't wait to come back on the show. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Okay, Rufus, I wish you well. Have a great summer. We'll be in touch, and thanks again.
All right, thanks, John.
Take care. Okay, that was Rufus de Rham, Interim Executive Director of the Connecticut Arts Alliance. ctartsalliance.org is the website. Lots of good information. Now, we're on the air here now on Wednesdays Live, and I want to mention, too, that a lot of our shows are on YouTube. And we're trying to do community radio in a commercial radio environment. And one thing we need you to do is to subscribe. The thing that's most important to help us grow our shows is to show the growth of an audience. And the beauty of digital media, whether you're listening to us on the radio, you can always email or call, but the best thing is to subscribe to a show. We have so many shows here, 3 to 6. Once you subscribe, you get every new show. You can always check out the ones you want. But what you're showing us is that you listen and that you care enough to subscribe. And it's for more than just helping us to sell messages for the station to grow. It's to show the audience that we're growing and that we're connecting. This is an election year. We're in a news desert where there's less and less local media. Thank God for Nicole at the Chronicle, one of our few local reporters. Tom King at Neighbors is a bi-monthly newspaper. That's a wonderful resource. But local news is hurting. And if you're an active voter, you know what I'm talking about. We need information. So what you can help us to grow our audience for our shows is to just sign up for these shows. It sounds simple, might even sound corny. It can really help in a simple way to help us build an audience to make the shows grow.
And it's free.
And it's free, that's right. No commercials will bombard you. Thank you very much, Matt. That's why Matthew's here. He covers the other bases I forget. because it's free. So next week, as I said, we had offered time to UConn. We'll try to get them when they're ready. Maybe we'll try them in July. But next week, we're also going to talk about Take Note, a wonderful a cappella group that does work throughout the state. They're having an annual concert and fundraiser in June. We're also going to have an update from Putnam Arts, speaking of the Quiet Corner. We'll also be talking soon about Veggie Stock, which is on June 6th coming up. And we're also going to talk to someone from the Owsley Stanley Foundation. You know, Owsley Stanley was the wonderful sound engineer for the Grateful Dead that really invented an incredible way to record music that is sonically remarkable. They have 1,500 hours of classic recordings from Bear, and they're restoring them and making them available. They've done all kinds of genres. I've had them on, I think, 6 times over the last few years. They had something out with the music of Charles Ives, so we're going to talk about that with Phil Siemens from the Owsley Stanley Foundation. And we're booking into July, so if you want to get involved, we'd love to have you in the house. John at humanartsmedia.com is the address, and we'll see you next week.